eyelid and looked at the upper fornix. And there was the salmon patch. And so this patient was seen by many good people, and they didn't think to lift the eyelid and look under the upper lid because that's classic of a lymphoma. So instead of going in and aggressively doing an eyeball biopsy and all that, we just did the conjunctival biopsy. And on the right here, you will see the lymphoma. So lymphoma can have a lot of faces. And if you're a retina specialist and you can't figure out what's causing the birdshot choroidopathy, just take a look at the fundus and the upper fornix, and you'll see the salmon patch. Any comments, Drew?
Yeah, so how would you treat this? Say it's unilateral, and you have uveal lymphoma. So one thing you could do is you could treat with external beam radiation. That'll get rid of the lymphoma. The other thing you could do is do a full systemic evaluation, and if positive or if negative for lymphoma, put the patient on rituximab. And we have seen lymphoma in the uvea completely melt away with rituximab. Rituximab, also known as Rituxan, is an anti-CD20 medication, so it's very specific for B-cell lymphoma. And it's a very, very good way to treat the eye as well as prevent multifocal systemic involvement.
Okay, very good. How many people have seen it? Quite a few of you? Okay. I was going to show one orbital case just in passing because we've got a few more minutes. We don't want to waste your time if you're mostly in retina, but a lot of you see different core cancers. This kid was kicked in the eye by his sister and developed a hematoma. Okay? And it didn't go away in about a week, so we decided to do a biopsy of it since it hadn't improved. MRI was done, and you can see, you can point there, I don't have a good pointer here, the mass in the orbit right there. And there was no improvement after a few days, so we went ahead and did the removal of the tumor. Here you can see it removed intact, and this proved to be a rhabdomyosarcoma, a very malignant tumor, which was misleading because everybody thought the sister kicked him in the face and caused the hemorrhage. So I wanted to show only one orbital case to drive you guys crazy because most of you don't do orbit. But anyway, we reported years ago 1,264 patients with orbital tumors and pseudotumors that we've seen, and now it's probably double or triple that, I think, since this was published. And we see 2 or 3 new orbital cases each week, even though we're supposed to be retinal oncologists and so forth. And the fellows that have come to work with us have seen those.
So the bottom line with Orbit, I know you guys are retina specialists. Bottom line with Orbit, if you see an orbital mass in a kid, there's a 90 to 95% chance it's benign, only 5% malignant. But if you see an orbital mass in an adult, there's a 40 to 50% chance it's going to be malignant, i.e. lymphoma, lymphoma, lymphoma. We see so many lymphomas in the U.S., and I'm sure you see them here.
Okay. Now, how many people in this audience have heard of Halloween? Raise your hand. How many people haven't heard of Halloween? Okay.
Celebrate Halloween here?
You celebrate that? Yeah, you sure it's a place.
You know what, in the U.S., it's still popular, but kids don't trick or treat as much because it's become a little bit too dangerous.
Yeah.
They trick or treat less and less.
Yeah. So anyway, this was a patient that was seen on Halloween Day 5 years ago. And the question we have here is, what is this diagnosis? Anybody want to help? How many people would classify this as a nevus? Nobody? How many would classify it as a melanoma? Still no, not very many. It's kind of borderline, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of RPE atrophy on the surface, so it makes you think it's been there for a long time.
Make you think it's been there a long time, and probably. So, is it a nevus or is it a melanoma? That's why the patient was referred to us. And that was the question. Is this a melanoma masquerading as a nevus or vice versa? On this patient seen on Halloween Day. Okay. Any reason to do a fluorescein? How many people would do a fluorescein on this? Most people, see if it would help you out, figure it out. Well, we thought about doing a fluorescein, but we said it's not gonna help us that much. But the patient's wife worked in an ophthalmologist's office. And she said, my doctor would do a fluorescein, would you do one? So we did the fluorescein on this patient scene on Halloween Day. Okay? So what do you think it's gonna show? Just for fun, we're gonna do, we play games with our retina colleagues allowed. Any reason to do a fluorescein on this patient scene on Halloween Day? Well, we're gonna show you the late angiogram first. Does anyone see anything in that late fluorescein angiogram that would tell us whether this is a nevus or a melanoma?
How thick is it?
Huh?
How thick is it?
Okay,
It's 1.7 millimeters in thickness, so it's not very thick. 1.7.
okay. Anyway, the wife told us to get the fluorescein, so we said, okay. So now we'll show you the early angiograms on this patient scene on Halloween Day. And there it is. And this is a true story that happened on Halloween Day. And he and his wife came in and they looked at that and she said, oh my God, is he gonna die? But we actually saw this patient on Halloween Day.
And you all see it looks like a skull.
Yeah, it all looked like a skull and crossbones and some teeth there. But we saw that patient 4 years ago, and every year they come back on Halloween week. And it's the same for 3 or 4 years. So it scared everybody, but so happy Halloween. And that's what we told them and sent them on their way. Now, so in closing, when we started to talk a little while ago, we asked a question. How many of you have seen any of these? And so most of you raised your hand. I think everybody did, didn't they? And that's what we've talked about. We've talked about all these lesions beside tumors, but some of them proved to be tumors. And we asked how many have seen all of these, and I think almost everybody raised your hands, right? Okay. So you're going to see these things in your practice. And we've showed you some of these conditions shown in these 9 pictures, all of which, many of which prove to be malignant. So it's kind of scary, isn't it? And the next question is, how many of you are scared? Raise your hands. Do we scare anybody with this crazy talk? I don't know. Carol, any comments on that? Well,
No, I just think keep a high level of suspicion. You know, if something doesn't respond to your usual therapy, it could be an underlying malignancy that you're just not picking up on.
yeah. So, most of you said you'd all seen these, and the question remains, do they all mean underlying cancers? And most of you would say no. But some are. So you need to know about these pseudo-cancers and keep a high index of suspicion, and do not overlook a life-threatening condition. And you can play a role in diagnosing unsuspected cancers, even though you're an ophthalmologist and your internist and so forth will look down on you. You're just an ophthalmologist. You don't know anything about this, but it's important to know about it. So I suggest that you start reading about eye tumors. So if you do start reading and know more about it, I'll have to show you what happens every Saturday night at our home. Carol and I have 7 kids. And here's what they do every Saturday night. They're lined up and they're doing compulsory reading about eye cancers and eye pathology and so forth. And this was taken several years ago. And even today, they're still doing the same thing. Even the dogs are interested in puppies. So, Carol, any other closing comments? She doesn't like it when I show things like this, probably. Anyway, that's the rest of the family. They're all reading books on ocular tumors and ocular oncology and retinal diseases. So I hope that all of you will be stimulated to do the same thing. And thank you for joining us. We still have a couple minutes, if there's any questions for Carol or me or any of our ex-fellows, you're welcome to ask us. Okay.
What was the diagnosis on the last case? You didn't say.
The diagnosis on the last case, which,
Oh, we still
oh,
see-
Halloween, yeah.
We still see the patient, and we think it's a suspicious nevus.
Yeah.
The risk factors aren't there in detail.
I have to admit, we would have never done a fluorescein on it. I mean, we just don't do fluorescein angiography on choroidal nevi, but the wife kind of prompted us to do it, so we did. We would have rather done autofluorescence to show that it's hypoautofluorescent, and we would have done OCT to show there's no subretinal fluid, and we would have said goodbye. You know, it's just a nevus.
But come back once a year. Okay. At least it gives us pictures to look at. Okay. Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions, we'll adjourn. Thank you.